With the advent of Air Manager 3.4 and X-Plane 11, we can now create some pretty compelling cockpits for flight training and recreational simulation. Utilizing Air Manager's new transparent background layer and X-Plane's pop-out windows for its new improved and high-quality navigation systems, we can create some very realistic cockpits. Now I want to show you 3 examples of panels I've made, both from scratch and by modifying existing paid Air Manager panels. These will include the Garmin 430/530, the Garmin G1000, and the Reality XP version of the Garmin GTN750. I'll also show you how I created these panels so that you can make your own similar panels for your own simulator airplane of choice. Although my sim has 3 49-inch monitors angled back at 60 degrees to provide 180 degrees field of view, you really don't need anything but an additional touchscreen monitor to operate panels like these based on Air Manager. Here I have a 23-inch Lenovo touchscreen monitor. So first, let's look at a modification of the Air Manager Cessna 172 Skyhawk SP panel. It utilizes the Air Manager GPS for the 530 and the Garmin GPS 430 in transparent areas in the panel to allow the GPS screens to show through from the desktop below. This setup also includes Knobster, which is a small knob mounted on the side of the panel, which by touching any knob you can highlight it in yellow, and then that knob is controlled by the physical knob in the cockpit. You can see more about that in some of my other videos. As a matter of fact, SimWare Kits is now offering the Knobster in a pre-soldered kit, so there's no soldering required, which makes construction quite simple. It really is freeing to be able to get rid of that mouse and keyboard when you're operating the simulator, and it makes for a much more realistic experience. But even with the improvements to Air Manager 3.4, there are a few tricks you need to use if you want to be able to incorporate X-Plane's pop-out windows with their great new navigation aids, like the G530 and 430 that are available. Also the beautiful G1000 that they have made available in both the MFD and PFD. And finally, a special trick to incorporate the Reality XP Touch Control GTN750. So let's get started. First, I would clone my current pay panel for the Skyhawk, and then it's a matter of removing instruments. We can remove the ComNav 1. We can slide down the transponder, the autopilot and the transponder. We're going to put 2 GPSs, so we don't need the ADF. We'll get rid of that. And we're going to have the second Garmin, so we also won't need that. So we can delete that, because we're going to use the number 2 Garmin for the COM2 and NAV2. So now we're ready to go. We've made a space, and the next step is to import the instruments. So we'll, if you don't have them, download the overlays for the 430 and the 530. You can see those there. They're available on the free store. You download them, add them, and now we need to select them and select them in the layout so that we can resize them. Now the width of the COM stack there is 530 pixels. So we're going to change, with them staying in their aspect ratio maintained, we're going to put 530 in there, and we're going to allow them to be resized. Once we get them resized, maintaining their aspect ratio, we can drag them over into the position we want to use them. Then we can slide the other instruments up just to make room. And we have a nice layout. Now obviously this is just a preview though. We need to create a background. Now the problem we have is that all these instruments are sitting on a background image that is part of the layout. And we can't see through that to see the desktop where the GPSs will reside. So we need to set the background to transparent, and then we need to somehow introduce that image again. Now the solution is to create a new instrument that's full screen, introduce the image with a cutout, a transparent cutout where the GPSs are going to reside, And you can see here it is with it on top of the GPS, as you can see where that is. Now we need to move that forward so that it's behind the instruments. I should say backwards. So we just start moving it here, as you can see with the pop-up menu, moving it backward. And we move it back, and actually the shorthand key is Control up arrow, and I'm just moving it one at a time, moving it forward until I get it completely to the back. And then all the instruments will sit on top of that. It'll show that way in the preview too. So now you can see now the GPS is on top. But now we need to get rid of the layout image that's there. So you can see layout, we change it to transparent, and that means that the transparent background will be behind the panel. Now we've eliminated that layout image, and we've placed that same image with the cutout in the rearmost instrument, which has an opening that's transparent, sitting on a transparent background. And the overlays with transparent center sit on top of that. So we have a clear view all the way through to the desktop to see the X-plane GPS windows that are positioned underneath, showing the screens for the 530 and 430. Now let's open this up and see what it looks like in full screen. Notice as we open up the window to full screen, we'll see that our desktop is showing through and all the way to my gray desktop. Probably not the best choice of colors. Let's go always on top here and lock it. And let's pull something from my other computer screen under. You can see, look at how can you see the alpha areas, the light areas showing a little bit of white through there? That's a problem with Air Manager 3.5 and or 3.4, and it'll be corrected in 3.5. In the meantime, I suggest you pick a very dark color for your background and keep objects from behind the screen. But as you could see, the window that I pulled over there was showing through. So let's unlock this now, or close that window, I should say, and let's you can see there's our image for the background for our rearmost instrument. I just wanted to show you how this was done. I'll open up the folder and show you that's what the image looks like. And I'm going to open it up just to show you how that was done. Just a matter of making a clear area, a transparent area where those GPSs are going to reside and where the bezels are going to cover. Now that instrument that you make is pretty simple. It has one line of code. Once you've put the PNG image into the folder, the resources folder, then open the script and just add one line, image add full screen, and whatever you've named your image in parentheses with the .png suffix, and that's it. Save it, and when you place that instrument, it should work just fine. Now to place the Garmin G1000s into a panel, it's pretty much the same thing. You just lay out the panel. I just put the bezels right on top there without any transparency, and try to figure out with a solid background where I want to position everything. If you plan to use the a background image, you could put that in there without the cutouts and go ahead and make that instrument and put it in the layer at the back. And then my little trick is to take the Windows snipping tool and take a full screen shot of that screen. Then you can use that image for a template to make the cutouts on the image that you have in the background to make the clear openings just slightly larger than the bezels, the inside edges of the bezels of your screens that you want to show through. It really does make for a really cool cockpit when you can be able to operate the Garmin's with your hands without using a mouse or keyboard, and the Knobster just makes it better because you can use an actual knob for those different stack knobs and the buttons that are incorporated with the knobs. It's very realistic. The final thing I'd like to discuss in this video is how to incorporate the Garmin GTN750 by Reality XP into a cockpit. And this takes some special tricks for one reason. Although there's transparency to the desktop, currently Air Manager does not allow a click-through. So you can't click a mouse or reach through with your finger to touch the screen to get that accomplished. So it takes a special trick, and basically the trick is to create 3 panels, and those 3 panels surround the Garmin GTN so that it's no longer, there's nothing in front of it, and you can reach through and touch it and operate it, as you'll see in the video. Now, if you have no interest in this, I'd give up right now and just go ahead and stop the video, because I'm going to get in the weeds just a little bit to try to explain how to lay things out. I'm sure a little common sense you could figure that out yourself, but I wanted to just talk about some of the issues that I encountered when I was trying to lay this thing out. Mostly has to do with resizing the panels and understanding how that mechanism works in Air Manager. Now, I find that if you're going to try to make this panel, it's best to open up a clone of the original panel you're basing it on, in this case the Baron B58 pay panel, and start to rearrange it to get the layout. It helps to make an instrument that's the size of the image, and just go ahead and create it with the image as a preview. You don't even need any guts to it, just needs a preview image in the folder. And then you can use that, size it based on the size of that image, and you can go ahead and create an image. Now, I just set it to 530 because that's the width of my COM stack here, and then I start rearranging things. I can pull the autopilot and the transponder down. Again, no GPS required with this fancy GTN750. Let's get rid of the number 1 Navcom, because we're going to use that, and we just orient things here. And then we slide that over. It looks like it'll work, but you know what? We don't need the COM panel, because the audio panel's built into the GTN. So anyway, we need to move it down just a little bit to make room for something to cover up that white window and the title bar on the window for the GTN. So we get everything the way we want it. And then we're ready to start making this thing into 3 separate panels. We're going to have one panel that's going to go from that edge out to the point where the 530 COM area. That'll be one big rectangular panel. It'll have everything on it that you see here over to where the COM panel is. Then we'll make a small one like you can see on top there. That'll be on top of the GTN. That's just going to be a black square. The bottom one's going to be a black square that's going to have those 3 radios on it. And those are the 3 panels. We'll have them set up so that they'll fit together perfectly to make the GTN show through in the opening. The interesting thing is there seems to be really no performance penalty for operating 3 windows at the same time, as opposed to operating one big window. So let's kind of step through how we do the actual layout of the different windows and resizing them and creating a background as needed. So let me talk briefly about laying out the windows. As I said, the COM stack is 530 pixels wide. So we know that the other half of the screen, or the left side of the screen, is 1390 by the full height of 1080. So that's the size of the panel that we're going to have most of our instruments on. Now, as I said, I took a screenshot of the GTN's bezel from the simulator, and that's what I've used as a reference. I put that image into an instrument, set the dimensions for the full size that the actual image is, and then as I brought that into my panel, I was able to resize that for 530 wide, and it gave me a height of 506 pixels. I believe that's what it was, but the math that works out here, the 516 plus the 60, which I randomly picked for the top to be wide enough to cover the title bar on the GTN, just in case it would be clicked and brought to the front accidentally. We didn't want that to show through. The top red window will just be strictly a panel with no instruments whatsoever, with a color background set to solid black. Same thing with the bottom one. It'll be 530 by 516, but it will have three instruments located on it. And then the rest of the instruments will be pretty much what you see here. We can just take our existing layout and resize the window, which will chop the ones on the right kind of off. And I'll explain that to you in just a moment. So the first step is going to be to remove all the instruments from this panel, which we're going to use for the main panel. And we can remove those with the right-click menu here and just remove instrument, remove instrument, remove instrument. And that way we'll only have the correct instruments in that panel. The next step will be to resize the panel. Now to resize the panel, we need to scroll down till we see the pop-up that says below Panel on Display and select Custom Window. And then press Resize Window, and we have two options. We want to select Resize Panel and put the width as 1390 for our ComStack, minus the ComStack for the width. And that will give us the right size panel to get rid of the area on the right. And then scroll down and we can look at the background information, and we want to select the transparent, actually it's set solid background, and we can pick a weird color so it's obvious that we're seeing that. And now let's take a look and see what we get. And opening it up, we see that we do have a 1390 by 1080 panel now with our blue background. And now the next step is going to be to produce an image, actually crop that image so that we see the correct amount behind, and that's a matter of just resizing that image. When we crop the background image, it's going to look like this with the black area on the right no longer there. The width is 1390. When you're done, the completed panel should look something like this, and it will be sitting towards the left side of the screen and filling the first 390 pixels. And you have an area to the right to put your ComStack in. Then it's a matter of just creating the additional two windows and setting the dimensions. Of course, you can do the math yourself to figure out how big the windows should be and where they're located, and then setting the background to black. And of course, if you want to add any instruments to those windows, you need to do that. And the reference for those windows will be 00 in the upper left corner, because they're individual windows which will have to be opened separately or associated with a simulator to open automatically with auto switching whenever you're ready to go. Now, one thing I will warn you about is the monitor layout. If you have multiple monitors, like you see I have here with monitor 1 and 2, there is an issue where whichever monitor has been marked to be the main monitor, which is grayed out where it says make this my main monitor. In this case, if it's not the main monitor, it's able to be checked. The upper left corner of that monitor is the 00 point for all of your layout. So if you're using multiple monitors and you don't have your Air Manager monitor as the main monitor, you're going to have to do some math. In this case, if this was the main monitor, the upper left corner of the yellow area would be 00, the red area would be 1390 and 0, and the blue area, the purple area, would be 1390 and 60 plus the height of the GPS window. You get the idea, but you have to do the math. If the monitor is not at the top left, you're going to have to make that correction to the location of the windows. Now, one good way to verify what the upper left corner of your reference system is to take a window and drag it to the upper left corner so it snaps to the monitor, and then see what the numbers look like in the window preferences for that panel. The end result when you're done should be a panel that looks like this, and once you've set it to on top for all three panels and lock them in position, you should be able to drag something behind it and it should allow that desktop to show through. And that's where you'll position the GPS, the GTN, and then you'll be able to touch it, you'll be able to interact with it, and the Air Manager panel will reside very nicely around it, and still you'll have touch capability and Knobster capability on your panel while you're using it. I'm sorry this went so long, and I hope everyone's eyes haven't glazed over, but I did want to make it available so they don't have to explain over and over to people how to do this. And I really do think it makes simming quite exciting to have great navigation gear and great panels that you can interact with in a realistic way. Hope I didn't drone on too long, and I hope you found this interesting. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll try to continue to learn things about the Air Manager and X-Plane and flight simulators in general, and I'll be sharing them on my channel. So if you'd like to subscribe, you'll be notified every time I post a new video. All in all, I'm very pleased with what I saw here. I love the GTN. The Reality XP GTN is definitely worth the $49.50 or whatever it costs. Air Manager, you know how I feel about that. It's a wonderful product for realistic simulation, and I hope you'll check them out and let me know in the comments below what you think. Take care. Bye.